Welcome to Get It Right with Atara Solutions, and I hope that you can hear me. And if you cannot, Richard will be repeating what I say. And we are very honored to have you tonight. And we are hoping that this will be impactful. So this is Get It Right with Atara Solutions. It's a webinar series that seeks to demystify issues in employment and entrepreneurship. We do this every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 9:15 nowadays. But we try to finish at around 9:10, 9:15. And we welcome you to ask as many questions as you can. It's not often that you get to have somebody like Vicky Karuga with us. If you try to see Vicky for an hour, I will not tell you the charges. You can see me separately for those charges. So we are very honored and very privileged to be having such a conversation tonight, and also in the consequent conversations that we keep having. Next week, we are looking at HR or rather getting a job in NGOs. After that, we have Mr. Mwita from Uganda. After that, we are looking at funding. How do you find funding? After that, we are looking at how do you publish books? And after that, we are looking at how to manage diabetes. So maybe you might want to stick around for these sessions because they're going to be very impactful. And I hope that we can change a life one person at a time. So Get It Right with Atara Solutions is brought to you, of course, by Atara Solutions. My name is Grace Nzula, and I am the host of Atara Solutions. And with me tonight, I have two panelists, of course, our sign language interpreter, Catherine Sidandi, who supports us in being inclusive. And of course, we have none other than Mr. Positive Flavors. Mr. Positive Flavors, you can introduce yourself, and then we'll do the partners, and then you can take it away.
Grace, thank you. You're on the road. Thank you very much. We are very, very happy to be here so that we can be able to learn what is
Richard, is it me or you have disappeared?
I can't hear him as well.
No. Okay. Somebody call me. I hope they don't call me. Sorry. I am very, very happy. Vicky, how are you doing? We've been saying that we should meet and eat mandazi, but it looks like we have to meet virtually so that.
I think you're refusing mandazi.
Yes. My name is Richard J. Magoma, Mr. Positive Flavors. I am your host, and I am very excited. Vicky is a very good friend of mine. I know she is going to do a thorough job. But before we go to the meat of our discussion, is it Jacinta or Grace who's going to tell us the sponsors of tonight's edition of Get It Right?
Thank you, Richard. I will attempt at that. And just allow me to just give mentions because technology is affecting me tonight. So yes, our audience, I'm on the road and yeah, long story. But yes, so our partners, Get It Right with Atara Solutions is brought to you by Atara Solutions in partnership with Pathway Solutions. Pathway Solutions is an organization that deals in training and HR consulting. They have offers for you, our audience, on their LMS. LMS is Learning Management System, and they are here for us for very long, for I think two seasons they've been with us. And if you wish to take on their trainings, you can do that at 20% off. So you can email myself and request for Pathway Solutions training, and you'll get them at very discounted prices. From Frank Wambari. We appreciate you, Frank. And of course, we have Stallion Construction Company Limited. Stallion Construction deals in construction like the name spells it. We have WeClean. WeClean is a carpet cleaning company, and they also do post-construction cleaning. If you're looking for people to clean your organizations, if you're looking for people to clean your carpet. By the way, they have a machine that cleans your carpet dry. Hosting Madam Vicky Karuga. We are in partnership.
All right, we have lost Grace. Grace was introducing the sponsors of tonight's show or episode, And we are very, very happy to have Vicky. I have heard your name pronounced. Is it Karuga? Karuga. She's really pronounced it in the way I cannot do it. I pronounce it differently. You're going to introduce yourself so that we really know how to relate with you. For those people who do not know, Vicky smiles a lot. She's one of those MPs that I know who smiles nonstop. That is one thing that I should myself against. So that I'm able to smile, I'm able to feel emotionally fresh, emotionally powered, because I know the power of a smile. Vicky, you're looking
Positive
great.
flavors.
I love the aesthetics of your office.
That's to be bright,
Well,
to keep me bright.
welcome to tonight's show. What is emotional
Thank
intelligence and how is it related to culture? Why should we invest in learning about emotional intelligence? Why does culture eat strategy? How can we use emotional intelligence so that it doesn't eat strategy, so that it doesn't eat
Or
a lot
tea.
of things within the organization? It doesn't eat great. I mean,
Or tea.
give us the secrets about emotional intelligence. Why is it important? And how should we be emotionally intelligent so that we can live a good life, so that we cannot have toxic organizations? Pick it away, Vicky. Remember to introduce yourself very well.
I will. I'm laughing because you're struggling pronouncing my last name. Did you want to add a H?
Karuga.
Yes, indeed it is. It's always a pleasure to be here and an absolute pleasure to talk about EI, emotional intelligence, and also just explore it with everyone who's on the call tonight. So my name is Vicky Karuga, and I am the managing director of a company called Profiles International, and we call our brand promise, what we promise is that we will mold cultures. Wherever they are, we will look for them. I know it, Richard who keeps telling me, Vicky, molding culture, and that's our hashtag. And we do this through the various tools that we have. Emotional intelligence is one of our big ones, and it's something that I am really passionate about. We train and I train and certify for delivery of programs in emotional intelligence. And I'll share a little bit of background of who we represent. But on top of that, I'm also a proponent of women in business. So it's another passion of mine to be able to speak on a little bit of entrepreneurship and how culture is really important in terms of when you're beginning as an entrepreneur as well. So both sides of the coin. So I will share my presentation, and let me know, Richard, when you stop hearing me, just in case the internet is also playing funny games with us tonight. So I'll start by asking you something that I ask most of my audiences, is to close your eyes and then recognize, just close your eyes, imagine your brain is a computer, and just see how many tabs are open. You know, how many tabs are open at this time: tab of the family, a tab of work, something is nagging you. So how many of those tabs can you close? And the action of closing tabs helps us be more intentional and stay focused on whatever we're learning. So after you've closed a few tabs, come back about emotions. And I will just start by stating what possibly everyone knows about emotional intelligence, and the fact that there are so many studies out there as to why emotional intelligence is important. We prefer intelligence and not emotional quotient, because we like to believe that it is an intelligence, it's a competence, it's a skill, and that we can learn this skill, we can practice it, and we can become better at it and at showing up more emotionally intelligent than we were yesterday. And these are just some of the stats that come when in places that have more EI and less EI. And the reasons why EI is important is for purposes of motivation, you know, to and to keep improving for purposes of working cooperatively, for purposes of change. I mean, nowadays, every single process is a change this, change EI, do this, change what direction. We're being told our strategies need to be shorter to be able to be agile and adapt to the various market conditions that are changing. So all these things speak to why we should be thinking more towards equipping people in the workplace, especially in the workplace, with EI skills. And I say that emotional intelligence is not only a game changing for business, it's also life changing for people, because the skills that you learn, you will use in the broad spectrum of where you are in life. Now, the last one there, I put it in a red bracket because the primary derailer, according to research and according to the Hay Group, is actually for top executives is actually a lack of impulse control. And impulse control can present itself in many ways, from the integrity issues that we see, but also when you're trying to foster a certain culture and you're rewarding a certain behavior so that that culture can be sustained or changed, whichever you might like. And so if you do not have leadership being able to not go back to the old ways and live the values that we want to see in the new culture, then chances are that you're going to struggle a little bit with the culture that you want. So these things called emotions that we carry with us, they're hardwired in us all the time. What do they do? And just to go back again to a bit of the science behind emotions, we are told that we actually create emotions. We construct them. We construct them with the experiences that we face, and based on sometimes on our belief systems, on things that we have lived, memories. And one example I like using all the time, because it's a very simple and practical one, is I am very scared of locusts. I mean, a locust comes here, in fact, my amygdala is hijacked immediately and I run for the hills. I don't even think twice where I'm running. I just bolt and run. But it always amazes me that someone will see that same locust and have a very pleasant feeling towards it because it is food, and they will pick it up, they will cut off the legs and they'll possibly go fry it and they'll eat it. And me and this person, same animal, possibly same situation, we've both constructed a different emotion around this animal. And we do that all the time. We do it with the people that we meet. We do it with the kind of work we're given. It's either going to motivate you or demotivate you. And most of the events in our lives are going to generate either pleasant feelings for us. And we know that pleasant feelings, when we feel them, we tend to be open to experience. We tend to want to connect with others. If someone makes you feel a certain way, if they tell you you're looking good, you're open, you're more open than when someone starts criticizing everything that you're doing. You shut yourself down and you go into reaction mode, and reaction looks different for different people. So emotions, these things that we like to label bad names. So, when we say stop thinking emotionally, or she acted rather emotionally, she's a woman, she's emotional, all those things we've labeled these names, are actually things that are in all of us, men and women alike. And the science really does show that emotions affect fundamentally our decisions, meaning that as much as we'd like to think we're rational creatures, we're really not. And people who have the part of their brain that listens to emotions impaired actually find it hard to make decisions. For example, a simple decision like whether I'm going to eat ugali or I'm going to eat rice, that small decision, they find it difficult to make. And that, just for me, I use that example a lot even in training rooms, because, and especially for men who would like to think they're the more rational creatures than the women, it's just for them to fundamentally be aware of, if you're not aware of the emotions that you're feeling at any particular time and where they're coming from, you're most likely bringing them to the decisions that you're making. So whether it's fear, and that fear is being brought from the fact that, there's a promotion you're chasing, so there are certain things you need to do. And so you're bringing that to the decisions that you're making without even being aware. Or whether it's, pleasure, happiness, sometimes also another destructive emotion if it's not checked. Even in terms of offices and workplaces, sometimes we can get so happy that we forget about things like accountability, which are the harder things to do because we do not want to upset the status quo. We like this, feel good, friendly situation. So decisions on how we connect and collaborate and what things we engage in are affected a lot by emotions. And then behavior, if you look at a collective people, behavior is dictated a lot by the emotions that they're feeling. And behavior now is what allows us to engage in a team, depending on whether we see that team setting as a pleasant experience or as a place where we fight. And then performance as well is affected. So one of the things that we can quickly begin to see is that everything around us is being guided by emotions. And emotions have wisdom. And especially if we learn to listen into the collective emotion, they're telling us that something is important, that something either needs changing, especially if they are the unpleasant types of emotion. It either needs attention or it needs changing. And when we're talking about culture, unfortunately, what we see in culture is not the emotion itself. We experience the effects of the emotion that's happening. So when you see people always making assumptions and, so-and-so is the one who's bound to be promoted, so-and-so is the one who did this or the other, is because there's no clear communication. And that's another thing about what kind of culture do you want to create. So clarity is a very, very important aspect of you delivering messages. I think they say communicate, communicate, communicate. Grapevines become very rich, the gossip streets of the corridors become very rich when information is not flowing, and they thrive in those situations. When people have reached, are stressed, and I like referring to emotional bandwidth here, to the point that you can no longer think before you respond, because the ideal is to, mind the gap. Think fast. Notice that you have been triggered. Have a space in between that we call the gap area for stimulus, and then respond, in a more intelligent manner. But we find ourselves incapable of thinking and responding when our stress levels are really high. So if you have a culture that is overworking you, you're not worried about the burnout rates of your employees, that really means nothing to you. So the things to achieve, you're driving them, you're most likely going to end up seeing reactivity. People's tempers flare off at some point. They say things that they didn't really intend to say and they possibly regret. And then that keeps being perpetuated over and over again. And then all of a sudden now we have silos, people who feel they belong to this place or not the other, or bosses who are feared, or places with there's no psychological safety because people have been hurt along the way. So again, allowing people to spend time rejuvenating and not addressing the need for them to relax and to be able to gain the energy that they need to come back and engage. And I have worked with organizations in my previous life where they would call you even on a Sunday night and expect you to deliver something on a Monday morning. And it seemed to be the norm that everyone is pushing. At some point, you're like, where are you going? This world is finite. At the end of the day, you're all going to the grave. So these things, you push your people, and then the next thing you hear, people are in hospital. And that's a true story. And people are in hospital and they don't know why they're in hospital. But the culture is such that it is so, it's like the chicken and the egg. It just keeps going, because there's no one there thinking about the well-being of the people. There's no people strategy. The strategy is more about either profit, results, and all those nice metrics that we like to measure. And we forget that they will be significantly affected, because when people react, it means safety issues are compromised. It definitely means even the result issues are compromised, compliance issues are compromised. So many other things really suffer when people do not feel like they have the bandwidth to be able to engage. And then when people feel worried, when again, information is not coming forth, or the constant worry about their jobs. Do I have this job? Have I done this job right? And especially this has to do with maybe someone you're reporting to, and you're constantly anxious about the kind of work you're doing. There's no validation that you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing. Yes, we will upskill you here because we have seen that there's a gap. Then we tend to focus on, my job, the problem, this is my job, I might lose it, I might not lose it. So your bandwidth is focused more, the collective bandwidth is focused more on either always making sure that you have a second way out, or you can't even do your job well because the place, the emotions that are there, you're not really feeling valued enough or validated enough. And then the last one, which is really, really critical, and we see it maybe in little pockets where we are, is about fear. When we see a culture of blame, no one wants to take the fall for anything. There's always someone else that you can put something on. Something happened and you're afraid to own up and say, this was actually my mistake. Sometimes big things. And don't even talk about it here. We see it in the big organizations. The oil spill, sometimes it takes a long time before a company says, by the way, we're the ones. Because internally, maybe someone had to take the fall. We see this in a company like, I think it was Boeing, where the engineers came and said we were afraid. So when something went wrong, we were busy accusing each other. We didn't want to speak about the problems because we knew what the repercussions would be. And again, speaking to trust. So when you see people blaming each other, it's because they're worried and they're fearful. But in the same breath, you will observe certain behaviors from a culture that is experiencing collective positive emotions. So when you see people who engage in one another, I go to your office, I ask questions, I move around, and I'm looking for a solution, it's because the organization has given me purpose. And purpose is a very important thing, actually. In fact, they say that organizations that turn around, if someone came today and took whatever, let's say XYZ, it wasn't doing so well, but there's a leader that came in, and within 3-4 years, you see or even 1-2 years sometimes, you see the organization moving, from the red now to the yellow and possibly now to the green. It's because they have a strong sense of purpose. And that strong sense of purpose, not only do they live it themselves, but they have the clarity and the vision to be able to cascade it down to not each and every individual, but to the vast majority. So when people walk in there, they feel like they work for something. So purpose is big. Purpose should be communicated every day. There should be workshops around purpose, actually. And there should be workshops in teams around why are they there. People should also be allowed to define how that purpose fits in with their own purpose. Because if I can see that this organization represents a value system that I like, and it's going in a direction that speaks to where I also want to go, not only in terms of my career, because that's a big one, are we moving together along the same path? In terms of my growth, my learning and development, if I'm here and I'm required to build the skills so that we can move this needle for the organization, I don't mind. It speaks to what I want to do. So aligning both values and purpose in terms of culture. And again, it's not an easy thing, but it's an intentional thing that if you look at organizations that have cultures that work, they do this intentionally. And they do it by creating lots of moments for teams to learn, lots of moments for teams to engage with each other and explore the why. Why are we here? Why should we even be here? So purpose becomes big because also purpose for us as human beings gives what we said, and I think I'll share a picture I saw today from a lady called Britta Andreata. It's more than happiness, more than providing happiness, doing the thing we do, giving lunches, possibly providing an environment that's happy. More than happiness, purpose is more long-term. Purpose is more sustainable. Purpose pushes innovation in cultures. We have to do, we want to do, and therefore we shall look for the way to do. Purpose allows people to commit to the path, because remember, a lot of our goals, as much as we like to say SMART goals, and I like talking about SMART goals because I think SMART goals are very operational. SMART goals are about, I want to move this thing to there, and it's clear and it's defined. So I know the number of steps I need to take and all those things. So I can divide them as specific, measurable, what is the other one? Attainable, realistic, and even time-bound. Those things are very easy to define. But even then, when you have a SMART goal, you know that it's most likely not to go in the very way that you said. But measuring it helps us, because we say what gets measured gets done. But when you're thinking about organizations and culture, that's not a SMART goal. They have a life of their own. It's more in the realm of strategy, where we do until we become, if that makes sense to people. We commit to the path and grow, but there's so many things that are going to be thrown there, that this works, this doesn't work. So your whole life is dedicated to ensuring you're creating a place where first people can fail, because they're always going to fail miserably, and they're also going to succeed immensely. Those two are a given. So success or failure is not in the realm of any particular person. It will happen if you keep doing the work. And I think it was Vusi who shared today in one of his posts. He said, if you keep doing it and going, you will eventually be successful at what you're doing. So your culture is about enabling that environment to allow guys to work at it, to commit to it, that they're able to push through. And by the end of 1 year, they're like, wow, actually, we did it. And if you also look at the facts and figures that have been shared recently, even by some of our local organizations here, the ones that have purposed to intentionally focus on people before profit actually see profit. Because when people are given that space, they will innovate, they will push themselves, they will achieve whatever it is that is meant to be done. And they have that space to play. So, and I think there's a lot of talk about, I mean, even when people come to us are like, we have shifted our focus, now we want to focus on people. And because now we have seen, the data shows that when you focus on people, you get the profit. But when you focus on the profit, the end goal, and you know, the profit is not a SMART goal, it's just a strategic goal. It means so many methods can get us there, but we want the one that works for us as an entity. Then you have to stop putting people in what we call the threat area, where they're constantly pushing themselves against their targets. And here I'll even give two examples. One was shared with me by a friend of mine called Mary Mokinde, and she says in her corporate life, they rewarded the individual. And this is again about culture. And so people learned that I was rewarded for the work that I did. So I am the best. So I earn the best bonuses. And we see this, I guess, even in organizations that really focus on sales. And the big bonuses are actually, I mean, reserved for that department. But she tells me what that did was that there were a few stars, and the rest of the organization felt like, you know, they were just wheels, or what do they call it, cogs of a wheel or something like that. Whereas the team was felt unseen and heard and valued. And so as she grew in her roles, she started realizing the value in being able to recognize everyone for the hard work that they did. So again, moving from a culture that only rewards certain individuals, and how do you find a formula to reward the collective in one way or another? Of course, it's different for different grades, different things, but making everyone feel significant. And this is the part about feeling valued. And that was the first example. So how do we move from glorifying individuals? Because when we glorify individuals, what inadvertently we're saying is that there's a certain set of skills that is more important than everyone else, which is not true. And I think Simon Sinek says in one of his videos that you really want the person who has high trust, the person that everyone can get along with, not the asshole in the corner office who no one can get along with, but everyone thinks is brilliant. So how do you ensure that now you're creating a culture where people care for each other? So people have to be valued before they can care for each other. How many people have friends at the workplace? And friends not in the silo mentality, but real, genuine friendships. And again, it speaks to the culture of organizations. What value are they pushing for? What are they rewarding? What are they not rewarding? And then when people are informed, communicate. Here, I think the pushback mostly is that why should we communicate everything? You know, there's a need to know basis. But communication, even of the things that are working perfectly, the things that are not, sharing with the teams, especially with your teams, areas of significant deviation from what the plan was, really helps people to go back to solution and to try and focus and see what can we do better. Because information then becomes, it is not a source of vindication, vindictiveness. You know, when we feel it's not wrong, we're getting more information because we need to make this thing work. So when we feel informed, when we feel that the organization is open to us, when we feel like our leaders are open, our managers are open, and even the people that we're leading, then we've created that safe space. Nowadays called psychologically safe place for them even to feed us and give us information. So that two-way street, then we all focus on solutions. So I can't, there are certain things that are stopping me from doing my work. Oh, is it a skill that you're lacking? More like, rather than saying, this person is, you know, not up to the task. And all the other things we tell ourselves when people do not perform well, have we taken them through the required steps of upskilling so that they're able to deliver? But even more importantly, things that I find is sometimes even at the leadership level, we put people there and we forget that leadership in itself is a skill. And so they will struggle. They will struggle trying to find the best way to deal with the people they find themselves in charge of. And remember that as you grow up, you're living, as everyone says, the more technical aspect of your job, you're moving into the more strategic and people management part of your job. But those are all skills. So how do you upskill everyone? Not just a certain level, upskill them so that by the time they're getting to the leadership levels, those skills are already there. They have been practiced for some time, and the relationships are there. So being able to foster a culture that understands that everything, almost everything actually is a skill. Some people are going to have it, others are going to have little of it, others are going to have more of it, but keeping them informed, listening to them, what are their needs, what do they need? Because at the end of the day, the focus is on delivery, and the focus is on creating an environment that people feel that they can actually deliver. And then last but not least, how do we empower people so that they can innovate? So a lot of this speaks to, of course, to communication, open channels of being able to discuss what has happened, what hasn't happened. Some people, I think, are doing this in terms of what they call what are they called? Thinking labs, innovation labs, so many of these things. But ideas can come from anywhere. How do you ensure that people are sharing even when someone feels, you know, it's not a great idea, but I'll share it anyway? Do you have those forums? So how do you empower people to even say, I think there's a better way we can do this? For example, I know one organization that has every 3 months, you're allowed to think of an idea, bring it up, and there's a forum of debate. So whichever idea wins, it's taken through and people vote on it. It's not just one person. So it's creating an environment where people are feeling empowered and they're going to think through things so that there can be better ways of being able to be able to do what we're trying to do. Now, all these things are not rocket science, really. I think in the space of all the things that we do, we are in a space where we more often than not are bombarded with so many things to do, and sometimes we lean on things that we have known to work, or so to speak, and we're not looking through and saying, okay, fine, let's examine ourselves as an organization. Let's raise our self-awareness as an organization, you know. Let's even understand who as an organization, what do we have? Which people do we have? If we're talking about these are the values that we want to live with as an organization, let's even see of the people that we have, how many actually think those values are what we should have. And even on a different note, how many people have checked their teams, and to also understand things from as basic as a personality awareness, to see how are people bringing themselves to these conversations. How are we appreciating basic diversity by actually first learning about it? Because the whole spectrum of inclusion, or the whole spectrum of even being able to trust other people, starts by first learning and wanting to understand. Personality exercises are very good in that. Team appraisals and exercises are good at that. We're learning, we're understanding. Before we can appreciate, we have to learn and understand. Then we move to appreciate, and it's like, oh, actually, this is what happens. And when this person brings themselves, actually, they've really tried. So then when we appreciate, we can then begin to value. And when we begin to value, is then now when we start saying, let's be inclusive. It's just not that you wake up one day and you're finally, inclusive of everything or everyone. So understanding that and really giving the time for everyone to learn the people around them, so that they are able to really appreciate what they bring to the table, so that they can value it, and then that culture of inclusivity can happen. So self-awareness as an organization, what can you say about your organization? What practices in your organization or in your business, as it were, have you reviewed with other people? Have you gotten feedback on? Feedback is very important. So that then you'll be able to talk about what are the things we can stop doing, what are the things we can start doing. But most of the time we find ourselves, we're running, and the culture creates itself. It creates itself based on what we are rewarding, and most of the time we're rewarding results. And then when we grow up, and suddenly we are self-actualizing, we realize, well, our culture is still fighting us. The culture is still in that stage, which we call survival, or I think as Maslow's law says, I think it was called, what was it called? The three basic needs. People are still struggling for identity. In fact, identity is higher than the three basic needs. People are still struggling for food, shelter, and clothing, survival. So how do we, especially if you have a business right now and you're growing that business, how do you intentionally ensure that you cultivate that culture? And I'll give an example of one big organization that was started by a family. And for many years, about 10, 15 years, I mean, they had Karugas, they had every Friday nights, GIF, all those things they used to do, and then they suddenly got big. And when they got big, it became little chiefdoms of which department was doing better where. And no one put that culture in check. So what happened is that this is my department, I'm championing the cause, I don't care what you're doing, forgetting it's still the same animal, different leg. So after a lot of years of now realizing this was becoming a serious issue, is when now, you bring the doctor in, what can we do about this? And the price to pay is quite a lot, about trying to now have a turnaround in terms of culture. Not that it can't be done, but if you're not yet that big and you're enjoying the fruits of small business, then you should be thinking about what policies are you going to put in place, what activities are you going to actively put in place every day. How are you equipping your people with emotional intelligence, which I like to say is like the oil of relationships. And relationships really are everything, because if people can have authentic, meaningful relationships with each other most of the time, then it means that you're cultivating some of these things that you're seeing here. People are understanding, if you're upskilling them on the purpose of being an inspirational leader. Unfortunately, I said it in another forum, to be a leader, you have to love. You cannot be a leader if you don't know how to love, because people are very difficult creatures to live with. They do all manner of things. And if you look at your brothers and sisters, they drive you nuts. So how are you going to be able to lead people if you really are not seriously devoted to them as people? And the way they come is the way they come. So how do you equip someone with that skill? Because it's a skill. How do you mentor them? How do you get the right coaches for them, so that even the people who are setting the tone are setting the right message when it comes to the culture that we want to see? And then maybe for people who are already in in a culture that they want to change, just recognizing in acceptance, because first it's in acceptance. And I like this because most human resource people accept first, and then they say, yes, we know we need to do the work, is now doing the work first of evaluation. And it takes a while. I know it takes a few, possibly a year or two, to really understand and see what really needs to be done. Is it really a culture review, a culture audit? Is it just some aspects of fragmented beliefs that need to be augmented together so that then you can try and see how you're going to unify those into themes that you either want to train for, facilitate for, or whatever that intervention looks like in terms of the culture transformation program that you want to do. So again, spending a bit more time instead of reacting and saying, you guys, this culture, or when you go in there, first thing you're told, we need a culture change. This culture is toxic. But there's no real deep introspection of why did it even come in the first place? What was there? So in the spirit of emotional intelligence, self-awareness as a human being is really the first place to grow anything. And I strongly believe that self-awareness from even an organization's point of view, that deep-seated of introspection of what is happening is also the best place to spend time in. Then the solutions that you come up with will be a lot more responsive to the things that you want to see. So I had a lot more about culture, but I see time has gone, and I hope that the few things that I've been able to share have kind of just been able to put my thoughts together on what I have seen in terms of EI and culture. But I want to end with this quote that by this guy called Phil Kaufman. He says, emotion and not reason is where the values that govern our behavior in modern society come from. And culture is nothing but collective behavior. And I think I've shared that with the fewer slides that I talked about when I said some of the collective behaviors we have are driven by values. For example, if we're rewarding one person, then the value, everyone wants that value that person is getting. So we'll fight for it, and we will value the ambition and being kifua sometimes. So that's what gets rewarded. The person who is kifua, who goes for it, is the person that gets rewarded. And so that's then we're being driven emotionally from the point of we want and we desire, and even as we're also rewarding that particular value. So you find that becomes the collective behavior because it's what's being rewarded. I thank you so much for listening to me today, and I think at this point I will take questions and answers, Richard.
Wow, I've loved your animation. It's like you are burning. It's like if somebody woke you up, you'll just talk without slides. Let me read what people are saying. The good things people are saying, the good and bad things people are saying. Let's see if there's somebody who has said bad thing. Locusts are rich in proteins. Locusts are delicious. They avoid our area because they know they are delicacies. Wow. Nice discussion by Asha Dima. Then we have Agostino who says, wonderful session. There is also Karen who said, Vicky, your former employer must have been a bank. We have Belinda who has said, wonderful session. We have Evans Yogo who is saying, wow, a very, very nice session. Congratulations. Isaiah is saying, this information is priceless. Thank you. There is Masi Murigi, my good friend, saying, excellent perspectives. Very good. Then there is Sakwa saying, who was replying to your question, those survival problems, they're called physiological. Then we have Susan saying, awesome, awesome session. We have Christine, who is saying, asante sana. Then we have Caroline, she's saying, this has been awesome. Then we have Carol James saying, awesome, 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 amazing. Good. You see the good things, as you say that we should be able to say good things to people. And you also say that you cannot be very successful if you do not love people. Now, there are questions I could like to ask you. Betsy is saying, I love the session. Now, I am in a male forum where some people are very skeptical about emotional intelligence. They say that emotional intelligence was brought about to dilute rationality, logic. Some men, if we do statistics, you can find we have more women about emotional intelligence. And how can we bring men to the board, they train that emotional intelligence is good for them? It is not a question of being in denial. What strategies can we use to bring men to this discussion? I'm bringing gender politics.
Thank you, Richard. I do teach men and women, and I get very interesting questions from men, and I actually love it, and I've come to appreciate them so much. The first place I always start is let's tackle the myths that surround EI. First and foremost, EI is a very intelligent thing to learn. Understanding your emotions, how you're going to use them to deliver, more effectively with less dead bodies on your wake most of the time, or go for something that you want effectively. Express yourself effectively, but still express yourself. It's a very intelligent skill to learn, I think. I mean, it's almost like being a politician. So without, of course, the perks of the other things that come with media and everything. But some of the things that I have found have made men shy away from this is, one, people equate emotional intelligence with being nice. And that is an absolute myth that people should remove from their heads. That if I'm not nice, then I'm not emotionally intelligent. That's a huge myth. Emotionally intelligent people get angry like everyone else. They get sad. They get all those other emotions. The only difference is the ability to discern, to understand, okay, now I'm angry. And I know that if I don't tell you that I am angry, I am suppressing that emotion. It's going to show up somewhere else. It's either going to show up in my mother's house, in my wife, all those places. So learning the skill of being able to effectively express yourself, your anger, is actually a superpower. The other thing is that it makes you weak, or it makes you vulnerable, because people also think emotional intelligence is about bearing your soul. Today I was talking to a young man and he was like, they're telling me I have to share my feelings. They're not telling you have to share your feelings. They're telling you have to share what you think. And he's saying something very simple. In fact, I told him, why don't you use the I feel statement more than fanyeni, do this? I feel that this is not the right way for us to do this because of 1, 2, 3 things. Different frame. And the last thing that I ask everyone is, how do you want to be remembered? Just think about how you wish to be remembered, as a man or as a woman. When you finish wherever you are, how do you want to be remembered? And I think that always is almost a game changer of, I actually want to be remembered as an effective human being. And if this skill is something that helps me move the needle, because the outcome is both for me and also for other people, then I will engage into it. So the last one, rational thinking is a myth. It's a myth, and I think I've talked about it. I can share the facts. There's some beautiful research out there. We are all creatures that are influenced by emotions. In fact, there's a study by Harvard that says that the best strategic thinkers utilize their emotional brain and their logical brain. In fact, if you don't utilize those two, then you're not using your whole brain. So there you go.
Thank you very much for that very elaborate and persuasive reasons why men should join the learning of emotional intelligence. The other thing I could like, for those people who are not like who know about emotional intelligence, so probably they're lawyers, they're accountants, they're scientists like you. Most people don't know that you're an architect. You will tell us how you moved from architecture to emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
What are some of the building blocks of emotional intelligence?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. So self-awareness is a really big one. In fact, we say the gateway to emotional intelligence is self-awareness, because without self-awareness, you cannot get into the realm of things like self-management, self-awareness is prerequisite to you being able to self-manage, because it means you're aware of your triggers, like we talked about the response stimulus. You're aware of your triggers, you're aware of your strengths, you're aware of your challenges. You label your challenges for what they are, challenges. You don't try and color them, in a nice way so that they look a bit better. So because of your challenges, then you're aware of your need to collaborate with others. Richard is a gifted positive flavors kind of guy. So if I want my room to be filled with positive flavors, I call him in. Other than that, if I'm not self-aware, I'll say people are not responding to my voice. People are not talking to me. So, but when I'm aware of the kind of tone that and what the impact it's having, then I can move into, and I'll use a very simple model. I can move into the realm of social awareness. I can start being aware of other people. And it is in being aware of other people that we're able to practice empathy. Now, there's another misunderstanding around empathy where we think it is sympathy, but that's not what it is. And one common question guys start asking me is, what if then, if I'm being empathetic, people start taking advantage of me, this nice person? You see how EI again has gone to being Mr. Nice Nice, or Miss Nice Nice. But the thing is, the more you cultivate awareness of others, you also start to understand who's manipulating you, who's actually genuine, who needs your support. So you have to lean into that conversation so that you're able to see which of these people actually have the desire and the will, and which people are actually trying to manipulate you. So it's not as we like to think it, we wake up one day and we're suddenly aware of people. There's a bit of investment there as well that we have to do with our teams and the people around us, so that then we are able to understand how to respond to everyone, which is agile leadership, as people like to say, agile leadership. You're not killing a mosquito with a hammer. You are taking time and attention. And that's why I said earlier, you cannot be a leader if you cannot take that time, because you won't be as effective as you really want to be. And then last but not least, the self-management realm. And for me, I like thinking of self-management, not in the way that, not even for me, but what I have learned self-management to be so that you can be resilient. It's the daily habits that you create that give you the emotional bandwidth you need to respond rather than to react. So resilience is never about how much you can take. It's about how you're guarding that space that we call between stimulus and reaction, because every time that space is kidogo, you react. You call me, you tell me you can't pronounce my name Karuga, I react because I don't have the bandwidth to be able to respond to you. So self-management, what do you do? What are your daily habits? And here I like talking about, do you sleep enough? Small, simple things like those ones. Are you eating well? Are you drinking too much alcohol? That's another thing I ask. Are you showing up resilient in most instances? Are you having time to think through your days, decluttering your mind, because we have so many things that we run into every single day. So are you taking time off, maybe at the end of the evening, to re-strategize and declutter your mind? So what daily habits now are you also employing to be able to energize yourself? And you could take this back to culture at the same time. You could take the same concepts and bring them back home to your teams as well. Over to you.
Thank you, Vicky. There's a question from Carol Mwangi. She has appreciated your presentation. Then she's asking, talk about culture and salaries. How do you maintain a good culture without extra costs? I'm trying to imagine that when Richard gets paid by Chris Sakwa, when he has presented something, he wants to buy shoes. How do we use emotional intelligence to manage our finances?
How do you use emotional intelligence? I don't know whether it's emotional intelligence, but part of thinking in more emotionally intelligent ways is the creation of equity, the creation of fairness, and the co-creation of fairness, actually. And I think this sits in the realm of things like salaries, things like even grievances, and all those things that affect us as a culture. The thing is, when things seem unfair, we will react, like I said, from the unpleasant side. So how do you communicate first, that particular policy on salary over and over again with clarity and with fairness? how do you reward where inequity exists? Again, not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. And I'll give an example about someone who said, we were not promoting people from one region for a long time because we thought they couldn't do the work. But the thing was that there was inequity there because the kind of access they had to education was not the same as, like, let's say Nairobi or some of the urban setups. And when someone addressed that inequity, they were able to upskill them so that they took advantage of the opportunities that were there. You see, that means someone has to sit in and listen. So how do you maintain a good culture without extra cost? I don't think a good culture has anything to do with extra cost. There's a book called I think it is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Cohesive Team, but it also has a program that we run. And one of the most effective ways of building these interpersonal relationships is allowing for more informal conversations. And those informal conversations can take shape in many ways. And what they do is they allow people to learn more about themselves, engage unfiltered. Can I use the word unfiltered? Engage unfiltered, because the workplace gives us a lot of filters, a lot of definitions of how we should be. Engage more unfiltered. And so when we tend to understand people from a more authentic perspective, it's easier to trust. It's easier to have conversations about good habits and bad habits. And the thing about accountability can start coming in, because accountability becomes hard because we feel we're attacking someone. When we really are not. We're trying to make sure that they show up at the workplace, as better versions of themselves. So that is one way that I can say, even having these simple games of go online, do some of those personality assessments, just from a team perspective, not that it's going to be like the alpha and the omega of everything, but it helps people to start understanding and being aware of each other. Those are some of the ways that I think, without increasing a lot of cost, you can start creating or changing into a culture that you want to see. I hope I've answered you, Caroline, but feel free to reach out to me and we can have this conversation. Yeah.
Thank you, Vicky. There is a question from Christine where she's saying she agrees, and then she's giving an observation that one of the prevalent problems is the executive or the C-suite accepting the role of emotional intelligence, even supporting it so that it can be spread. How do you try, or not try really, how do you manage this particular situation so that there's a buy-in from the top executive? As she has rightly said that the fish rots from the top. How can you be able to convince the executive that this particular project of making people understand what is emotional intelligence is for the good of the organization, especially accountants? I don't know if there's an accountant.
Especially accountants.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of people, engineers, accountants, every single one of them. And first and foremost, I think there is a need to socialize from a very early age so that, as I said, we grow the skill. But what we've done at that level is there's a story we give. It's called the EI experience. And we ask a few sets of questions, and then they answer them. And then we say, if this person called you right now, how likely are they to pick up? Are you to pick up their call? So we do what we call the good boss, bad boss exercise. And we share a couple of questions, and then we say, so you really like this boss, what did they do? And they tell us. And then, so how did they make you feel? Is the first question we ask. So guys say, he made me feel smart, or she made me feel empowered, she made me feel clear, she made me feel I want to do this and the other. And then we ask them, on a scale of 1 to 10, if they call you right now, how likely are you that you're going to pick up that call? Most of them will say, 9, I'll pick the call. And if they were in a situation that they needed your help, how likely are you to help that particular person? And then they give us a figure. And then we go to the other side of the worst boss. And of course, after they answer the question, they say, yeah, that guy made me feel pathetic. He made me feel like I didn't know what I was doing, la, 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 all those things. And they're like, so if he called you right now, how likely are you, or she called you right now, how likely are you to pick up that call? And most of them will be like, hey, partner, I wouldn't pick up that call. And so we asked them, so do you think sometimes that the person who you labeled as your worst boss, do you think perhaps was it a skill issue or was it a personality issue? And they're like, yeah, you know what, we probably never know. So then we asked them, so if we did this for the people who are working for you, where do you think they'd put you? And then suddenly it becomes clear that it is important how you make people feel. Yeah.
Thank you. I know you have got a very photographic memory. There are 3 questions here. One
Have
is
I lost you? Or is my internet gone?
I'm getting you. Are you getting me? Hello? Hello?
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, all right. I know you have got a photographic memory. There are 3 questions here. One is from Dr. Rebecca Ann Minor. How can we incorporate the components of emotional intelligence while conducting culture audit? The second question is from Gloria Aniver. What is the connection between emotional intelligence and receiving feedback, either negative or positive, whatever kind of feedback? Then there is Mercy. She's asking, how do you incorporate emotional intelligence in performance management? Is it measurable? Yes, if Nelson was here, I'm sure probably it's here. How do you convince people with statistics that there are benefits out of emotional intelligence using statistics? I'm sure that is what she's asking. Go on.
Okay, so the first one is how can one incorporate the component of EQ when doing a culture audit? So there are certain tools that look at the emotional climates of organizations, where they are and possibly where they want to be. But I have found that when you're doing a culture audit, it's like you're doing a self-awareness of the organization. So basically you're trying to figure out where are we and then accepting this is where we are. And then now moving to develop what will those interventions or what we want to see and what do we need to do. So for most of the work that we have done, it has been anchored back on fostering the behaviors that we want to see. So a lot of culture interventions that I've seen are anchored on values, and a lot of those values are just values if you don't then put them, as I think Brené Brown says, you don't put them into an operational skill or behavior or competency. So for example, in one area, what people realized is that it became apparent that being able to appreciate others was important. And not only just appreciate others, it was to appreciate them so that they would be able to give information that was critical for safety. Because safety is a two-edged sword. On the one hand, you have to be able to receive all the information you need to be able to make proper decisions that will even grow or guarantee safety. It was in a cargo area. And on the other hand, people are scared of giving that information because they think that when they deliver that information, what's going to happen? Someone is going to get hurt somewhere, yeah? From up above. But then operationalizing the value that we care for that information means that we have to reward for appreciation. And how does appreciation look like? And cascading that down to how it looks like at the different levels that are in the organization. And yes, going back to Gloria's question, that meant that it became part of the things that they want to see, the things that they reward. So they had a whole matrix around the behaviors that they reward. And if you didn't meet a certain threshold, then obviously you needed either re-upskilling or you needed coaching and mentoring on certain situations. So what actually did for that particular organization, it raised the number of reports they got, safety incidents that they got, but it drastically reduced the number of incidents, actual incidents that happened. So it goes to tell you there were no more it's not that they became more, it's just that people felt it's safer for us to share now than they felt before. And then that meant that at least the one thing that they were bothered with, which was safety, which was a key KPI. You can imagine in cargo welding areas where, logistics, ships cargo is moving everywhere. I mean, one accident is a huge failure, even more than profit in that particular place. So you can cascade down and bring it down to which KPI you're hoping to affect. And sometimes it's not as easy as, as I said, these things are not easy. You have to think, you have to sit, you have to see, you have to put the pattern together, you have to form that framework, you have to even see how you're going to reward it, and then you can actually do it. And it's been done before. Yeah. And then the next one you said was, how do you incorporate? So that's also how you incorporate EI in performance management. It can be measurable, it can be a KPI, but you have to really understand what you want. You have to understand then what you have to reward for. You have to see it all the way down to the return on investment that you want to have for an organization. So it can be a KPI. It's just that it's not a discussion you can just have with someone. It has to be a bit more lengthy than that. What else do I want to add on this? So some of the other things that I've seen in the area of performance management is because in EI, we talk about equity and fairness. I think I mentioned this, is in really looking at performance and how do you want to enhance it from a more equitable point of view. So you can be able to have conversations around performance management with people, if that's what you want to call it, from a point of, I think we do this all the time. What do you want to achieve first? Let's set your goal. So we are co-creating performance together with you. And so therefore, at that point, when you don't meet your criteria, then it's a different conversation from I put the goals on you and I ask you, why you didn't meet them? I don't know if I'm making sense. So it's about co-creation. Yeah, I'm making sense. Eh?
You're making a lot of sense. Not even sense, a lot of sense.
Yeah. So those are some of the practices that that we speak to when we talk about performance management. And in those particular ones, they're even able to attach a certain bonus, so to speak, or a payment, or all those things towards someone's agreement with you. Yeah, I think I can do this. This is what I need. I need the support. If I'm not achieving, I can come to you and you can help me. So those are some of the things I think I can talk about when it comes to performance appreciation.
Thank you very much, Vicky. It will be bad emotional intelligence if I do not say that we have visitors from Uganda, Kampala. We have visitors from TZ. We have visitors from all over the place, East and Central.
Hello, how are you?
If I'm right, put an emoji. If you come outside Kenya, put an emoji to say that you come from Uganda, you come from TZ. As you put your emojis, I'm going to read what Damaris has said. Damaris Ndongo, culture is anchored on company values. Leaders cascade what is of value either consciously or unconsciously. It then follows that any self-aware leader is more empowered to lead the right values, behaviors, and standards through structures that reinforce an enabling culture for the company. Yes, at no cost per se. So she's talking about creating a psychological safety environment. Now, as we wait for those emojis to come from all over Africa, Agostino has said, good presentation. Vicky, kindly explain. He wants you to say something about logic and rationality and emotions. Probably you can take a go as a last bit. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead, Vicky.
Okay. So he says, can you explain the use of emotional versus the logical brain, how those two can be used or applied in our working area spaces to give us better results? The first step is really the recognition that we are not rational creatures, or rather, can I say we're not purely rational creatures, and that the emotional brain is just as much as a part of us as the logical brain. The two are together, and they were meant to work together. So possibly, if you want our workplaces to work better, it's about really sensitizing people to that, so that they can then have an awareness of what emotions are and understand them without, like I said, labeling them or judging them as weak or bad or all these things. And without that actual sensitization, people will keep thinking that they're thinking from their logical brain and not from their emotional brain. So for me, I would say, how can we use this in the workplaces? Educate people, let them be aware of their emotions. It doesn't mean that when you're aware of your emotions, you're going to make worse decisions. No. In fact, when you start being aware of your emotions, you start seeing how they are affecting the decisions that you're making or how you're showing up to people. There's one saying we say that or even the impact, every time I show up to you, Richard, yeah, by the manner that I speak, by the manner that I talk to you, or even just I present myself, every time you show up to someone, they experience a feeling. That's the truth. And depending on that feeling that they experience, they will either choose to engage with you or not engage with you. And whether they choose to engage with you or not engage with you, I think pretty much sums the experience or the outcome of that particular relationship. So we all have a responsibility to how we show up to people, because we ultimately sometimes are responsible. And that is why emotional intelligence, we don't say it is a skill of being self-aware, aware of others, or we say it is the ability to perceive your emotions, to understand your emotions, to manage your emotions, to be able to utilize those emotions to not only just in yourself, and that's the biggest difference, but is in yourself and in others. So that means also recognizing emotions in others, understanding emotions in others, being able to use that emotional climate. I need to generate a positive emotion here because I need people to engage back with me. And that's what real emotional intelligence is.
Thank you very much, Vicky. In fact, today somebody said something very nice. I was in the lift, and these Gen Z people don't fear. They told me, hey, gentlemen, you're looking very nice. You're well dressed. And I took 5 pictures after that. Now, before we go to your parting shot, Grace, I hope you are there. You can tell us what goodies do we have today.
Richard, I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear loud and clear.
Or Vicky?
Vicky, can you hear Grace?
Oh,
yes,
Vicky,
I can.
that was amazing. Vicky, that was really, really amazing. I'm here thinking, oh my God, there are some things I'm doing tomorrow. I'm definitely incorporating the lessons from today. And Madam Yani, you're leaving the talk. Richard? Richard?
Yes, please.
Yes, the only offer for today is from Profiles International.
Oh, the one for discounts, for where Lilian Mundu got a discount. She loves discounts.
Oh, I disappeared for a minute, so I'm sorry I brought that back.
Yes, we ran a certification on emotional intelligence for practitioners, or anyone who'd like to delve a little bit more into the world of EI, what it is not, what it can do. And it's actually by the company called Genos, represented all over Africa. So Rwanda, Uganda, as far as Tunisia, as far as Nigeria, Ghana, all those places, we have practitioners who work with us. And usually we run this for a cost of $1,500 but and we give 20% to IHRM members. So if you're an IHRM member, you can get 20%. But for this particular talk, I'd like to extend, and Grace will verify it for me. Actually, we've not really done this, but we'll give you at least 25% discount for any person referred to by Atara Solutions, and Grace can pick can tell me who that is. And the next certification is in September. Should you want to stagger your payments before the particular certification, feel free to do that. We will get your contact from Grace, and that is the offer we have for you today. So 25% for the Atara Solutions followers on this forum for just taking the time to sit and listen to me. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Our Atara Solution is about connect.
Amazing.
Yeah, so let me type
Go
it
ahead.
here.
Go ahead.
Atara
Richard,
Solutions.
go ahead.
Atara Solution is about connecting people across the world. The journey has started. You can see nowadays we have people from Uganda, we have people from TZ, we have people across the region. Do you have a website, Vicky?
Yes, we do. We do. We actually have a website. It is called www.profiles.co.ke. If you look on the chat, there's someone who's been posting our website, our LinkedIn, our Instagram, our Twitter. If you look me up, Vicky Karuga on LinkedIn or even on Twitter, you'll find me there. So just feel free to link up there as well. The flyer is, I'll actually attach the flyer onto the chat, although it's on your screen right now. If you can see it.
Yeah, it's there.
Yes, it's there. Yeah, what else do you want to know?
Pretty much that. Pretty much. Thank you very much. You've been amazing. You've been awesome. You've been fantastic. You've been magnificent, as Rolene Wambita has said. I have been energized. I am leaving the office a very happy man that you have been able to deliver on your presentation. Your parting shots.
My parting shot. My parting shot is very simple. Let go of the notion that you are a rational being, and welcome the notion that, the whole of you, bring yourself to that table, and you'll find that life is very meaningful. I think someone said that you cannot even enjoy joy if you can't feel pain. So just get on with it. Let's experience the whole experience that we're meant to have. That's what I would say my parting shot is.
Vicky, thank you very much. We appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
This has been your moderator, not moderator of choice. Moderator of choice is not. This is Mr. Positive Flavor, Richard, Jay. Yes, Peggy, I've seen you. You have to make sure that I've seen you. Thank you very much. May God bless everyone. May we keep on making sure that people invest in emotional intelligence. Atara Solutions will keep on connecting you, bringing you top-notch speakers such that you can become powerful, because we are told knowledge is powerful. From here, Atara Solution, getting it right. Good night, and God bless everyone.
Good night, and God bless you. Thank you very much.
And as we leave, in your language, whether you're coming from Uganda, Ethiopia, say thank you in your language. Your language. Say thank you to Vicky and Atara Solutions, who are empowering us, who are boosting our intelligence. Say something in your language. Say thank you or good night. Newega mono, asanti, Jacinta, kwaheri, newega. Asha Dima, I am not going to read that because it is difficult. Vicky, thanks. Atara Solutions, Santezana Martin Matsonga. That is not your language, but Martin. Gongoing, Joylin, Chip, Ero Kamano, Frida Gumba. We have Anissa Ireli Newega, Abigail Rotich Kongoi. We have Shukran Fatima. We have Oreo. That is from Christina Mandala. Good night. Wabali Nayo. I do not know which language is that. From Stella. Sante, Vicky, and Richard. Stella, I'm not going to read that because I don't want to murder your language. Asante sana, Sarah, Ahmed, Erokamano, Triza Arara, Nasra, Dadik Somali. I'm not going to read it. Thank you very much. May God bless you for finding time to joining, getting right at our solution. Until next week on Tuesday, same time. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Positive Flavors. You are wonderful. You keep getting it right all the time. And to you, Vicky, thank you for getting it right as well. And I really appreciate you guys holding forth while we're here. Mobile nyo, yes, mobile nyo, my people. And Gongoi to everyone. By the way, people of Gongoi, I'm in Kapsabet. We can have tea tomorrow. And have yourselves a lovely night.
Good night.